It's back. It's movie and drinking and hanging out and talking crazy comments about movies. And it's the hot take show, the hot take movie show. And with me as always is Greg, the bearded comic bro.
Yes, I'm excited. I think I'm even most excited because I feel like this is like our second kind of like segment of like a style of movies, because I kind of invaded your show when you were doing your tribute to African Americans in cinema, and then it was like we did the sports and we did 4 weeks of sports movies, which is awesome. But now we're talking time travel, so like we're flipping the script a little bit, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what I always loved, and I worked in a video store, so like what I always loved about the video store was like the subgenres. Like with you could like, yeah, there's like a comedy section, but within there you got romantic comedy or screwball comedy, or you have these subgenres, and I feel like the fun of kind of what we've been doing is finding those niches and then like sort of just digging in that for a little bit.
Well, it's true, because I remember we have a list of like all these that we've kind of come together of like, here, what are some topics that we can talk about movies wise? And I remember you threw in time travel movie. And I remember my initial comment was, I hate time travel movies. And you're like, oh, maybe we don't do that. And then I
was like, hey, they're not all gonna be winners, Greg. I mean, come on.
And then I started to like process. I'm like, no, I like that. I like that. So I was like, yeah, once you start to get into the subcategories, because if you talk time travel, and we have 4 subcategories of it, but like there are, and you can't just lump them all together.
And as usual, we're going to spread this out so that we have more time to kind of hear what the chat has to say and dive a little deeper on some of these movies. I think we learned from week 1 of sports that we don't want to do a 2.5 hour.
It was short of 3 hours. I mean, like someone's like, I think the second week you're like, hey, if you missed it, go back and watch the last stream. And someone's like, block out 3.5 hours.
Right. Yeah. I think it was probably I got issues saying, yeah, even if you watch it on double speed, you're still watching a movie, a length of a movie.
Yep.
So let's say hello to this chat because we're making jokes with you and enjoying your time here. Simon R., we were saying before we went live, this is definitely somebody that if you ever want to come on one of these wrap up live streams and just talk with us about anything we're doing, time travel or horror, if we do Halloween horror stuff, you let us know, man. We would happily have you in here for sure. And he says, how about The Time Machine with Robert Taylor? Which 3 books would you take back to influence a civilization? Yeah, you were pitching me on this, and I was throwing out a lot of like philosophy kind of ideas. You were like, oh, let's do engineering, like engineering, how to build machines. If you're going to go back to influence civilization, you want to be able to build aqueducts and things like that. So you're clearly a more clever individual than me.
My first thing, I was like, ooh, I was just thinking of my favorite book. I was like, Confederacy of Dunces. I was like, I'll bring that one back because it's hilarious.
Right.
But it doesn't do anything for society, apparently.
No, right? Yeah, neither would Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but you don't want to leave that, right?
Right.
Hello to Todd Christian. Hello to Lost in Comics. I'm assuming this is Chris, because Chris was, when I was doing my walk this morning, he was in the live stream talking about how he loves time travel movies, and I said, hey, if you want to hang out on the final chat of your favorite time travel movies joining us, come and hang out with us and see what movies we bring up and what we miss. Optic Blast, that seems like Fire Guy Ryan would love this channel right here. Cyclops Optic Blast. And then there they are. Perry's blasting us all.
Which I feel like Perry's, I'm glad you're in the chat because we might be talking about some movies you react to. So
right,
we can walk you through some of those, Perry.
Absolutely. And Ruben Guzman is here and he's saying Bearded Avengers Assemble.
Always. Although he's always usually first on my videos. He's been slacking. He's like 3rd or 4th now. So come on, Ruben. Come on.
Gotta step up that game. And Perry mentions Frequency, which he did a reaction video to. And we had a lot of debates on, is this time travel? Is this not time travel? And eventually our next weekend, we're going to do is this a time travel? We're going to do a whole category of, you could argue that maybe it is or isn't.
we did that with sports just to kind of find like a hodgepodge, and it kind of became like a really hot button subject, and we're like, we can do that with time travel. So that might be one of my new favorite segments that we're keeping in, at least for right now. Of is it?
You can blame Ace Ventura for that, I think.
Yes, we're all going to blame Ace Ventura for
that. Ruben says, I miss Blockbuster. Yeah, I mean, I worked for Hollywood Video, so I mean, we were the competition, but we never really were any kind of competition. They went under before Blockbuster went under. So I don't know if I missed any, but here. Okay, he's just going to run through and list a whole bunch, and we'll travel back in time and read some of these. See how I brought it all back together?
And you did miss some. I got issues. I read your
I'm sure he did. Kate Titus, hello, konnichiwa. Talking between the past and the future, I would say it's a time travel. There you go. Yeah. Connections between past and future affecting one another. You could argue some of that. And there's an epic list that I almost don't even have the patience to read. But wow, that's some serious. And then he goes for another round. There's more after that. Look at him go. Gore Vidal.
Yes.
The guy who really inspired me doing this as a live stream and not just a list I was posting on Instagram. Thanks, buddy. Look at all these ideas happening here. All these things. I haven't seen Tenet yet. I really want to, and I know that one of the things I like about Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker is how he plays with time. Mm-hmm. He does it through editing, and a lot of my favorite filmmakers do that. I mean, I'm a big fan of Steven Soderbergh, and I love his movie Out of Sight with Jennifer Lopez and George Clooney. And that movie's all out of order, and there's these great little freeze frames where the movie will pause for a quick second and then go, because it's like this fun stutter step it does. I dig it.
Yeah, I want to see Tenet. I mean, we haven't gone out to theaters yet, so it didn't influence it, but I'm excited to see it. Whoa, Kate Titus! I got a shout out. Man, I've got to stay up to date. I missed it.
Right. Is Black Knight a time travel? I mean, he does travel back in time. Let's just be honest.
It is, and so is a Kid in Aladdin's Palace or whatever, or Kid in King Arthur's Court.
Yeah.
Well, he did a sequel to that, which was a Kid in Aladdin's Palace, which was
there you go.
So stick around.
There's Jeffrey saying Martin's in it. There you go. I am a novelist. I knew nothing. Now I'm a novelist. There you go. The ones I listed are the ones I like. If it wasn't on my list, then I choose to ignore it. Boom.
Hot takes. I always appreciate it.
Right. Azkaban is here, and there's my Hogwarts box, courtesy of TJ the Slab Dragon. And there is a time travel movie within the Hogwarts universe. So there you go. Blockbuster in Hollywood, downfall, no porn section. Hot take, factual. Barry. But does he really, or did he just imagine it? Ooh, deep thoughts. You worked at a Blockbuster for 3.5 years? Wow. I was an assistant manager for Hollywood Video, so exciting.
Blockbuster is the only job I ever applied for where I never heard anything back. I applied in college, and they never called me back, so I just worked for the college then. So their loss.
So let's discuss here at the top of the show. 18 of you hanging with us. We really appreciate it. We broke down time travel movies across mainly genre lines. And that would include action, humor. What was the third one?
Romantic.
Romance. Thank you. Romance. And then dark themed or heavy, sort of dystopian time travel films. So those are our 4 different categories, and we're going to spread that across 2 nights. We're also the second night going to throw in a little, is this a time travel section? Just to kind of mix things up a little bit. Tonight, we're focusing on action because, let's just be honest, some of the best time travel movies, period, are just the ones when stuff gets to blow up and then blow up again later. You get to see it blow up a few more times. And then we're going to discuss the darker side of time travel. Those... maybe time travel, not such a good thing.
Yeah, and I'm excited because they are completely. I think when we put them in these categories and when we were trying to figure out our lists and coming about, man, they're completely different movies, right? Like you're not going to take a Back to the Future and try and rank it in with something like
a Terminator or a
Terminator. Or like it's. I mean, you can, but it's just tough. So like it gives us this kind of freedom. This kind of they're in the same genre, but now let's look at the subgenres, and I'm excited. So
yeah, I mean, I think it was a fun way to when we both shared our list of like 20 movies. We were really close. I think I had a couple extras you hadn't seen. Yep. You had a couple that I had totally forgotten about. And we were able to kind of cull that into ostensibly 20, 22, 24 movies, which was amazing how quickly that kind of came together.
It was, because I feel like the other last month we were talking sports. And it was very easy to categorize. Basketball, football, right? Well, Here we were like, we were trying to come up with different, like what are some categories we could go with? And we were like, let's just name our top 20, 25 time travel movies.
And then sort.
And then sub.
That was a very good suggestion.
And that's what we got. And this is where we are. So we're talking action and dark themed movies tonight. Next week, we're talking comedy and romantic.
Some of those humorous ones might show up next week. And some of those more romantic ones also. Right, so if you have some of those suggestions, just be ready to break those down next week for sure. And I see some of those in the chat for sure. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
What are you drinking tonight? So the other half of the show is little drinks. What are we having?
So I've always got my bourbon on deck if I just need it as also. But I'm drinking it's a short brew. It's from Shorts Brew. It's called a Mule Beer. So it's supposed to, here we go. So it's supposed to be like a ginger, what you would get when you get
like a shanty.
Yeah.
My coworker is one of my coworkers is Irish, and she when it's hot in summertime, she'll get a bunch of beers, get a little lemonade, and make these shanties for everybody to have.
It's a little bit like that. It's kind of also like the cocktail of the mule cocktail, which it kind of has, but the Moscow Mule, like, let's explain. And so it's the beer is brewed with those types of notes in it to hit that kind of Moscow Mule feel. Nice. So it just is a refreshing one that it pops up randomly. So I was at the store, picking up some drinks.
It's got that kind of summer hot, it's hot out kind of refreshing thing,
Yeah, and I'm one of those. If it's a good beer that I enjoy, I don't care what. I drank a pumpkin spiced beer that I had like in June. Not even that, so it was a really old one, but it still tasted good because I was like, I like it. So
there you go. Hello to Comics Misexplained. Thank you for coming by, Jason. How you doing? My favorite cocktails are rum and Coke. So this is rum and Coke. I do a little lime juice in there, so I guess technically it's a Cuba Libre. But that little citrusy, little fruity kind of thing thrown in there takes it up a notch. I felt like I was getting a little sleepy. I needed a little sugar in there. Bump it up a little notch.
This is the guy who's on the West Coast.
I was up at 5 o'clock this morning doing my exercise.
Right, never mind. I'll give you that.
I don't sleep in. I'm a 5 a.m. up and let's go kind of guy.
I'm a sleep in, which is why this time frame works for us.
I don't know what category it would fit in, but Predestination is probably the most bizarre WTF time travel movie I've ever seen. And I'll say there's a ton of great WTF time travel movies that blow your mind. And one of the reasons I like this category of film is I feel like it is one of the best rewatchable kind of genres in a way. You get to enjoy a movie just as much the second time, looking at all the little ways that the creators were sort of spinning a yarn that is clearly crossing over and back between time zones.
If it's good.
If it's good, certainly. Yeah, we're not talking about the crappy ones. I mean, we might bring some of them up, but
right. But it is. It's one of those you start to look at it and you're like, what did I miss? Were there signs to set it up of like those kind of, MacGuffins that are, like little side notes that are thrown in of like.
Right. So. And I love some of these discussions. Is Groundhog's Day a time travel movie? Is Interstellar a time travel movie? Is Memento, which, by the way, is one of my all-time favorite movies, is it a time travel movie? I love some of this. Out of Sight is Out of Sight. That is one of my all-time favorite movies as well. I'm a big Soderbergh fan. In fact, I've got this Chinatown poster The twin to this Chinatown poster, I got one just as big for a movie he made, for the Soderbergh made, called The Limey, where Terrence Stamp comes to the U.S. because his daughter has gone missing, and she was in with some kind of odd, troublesome crime kind of people in L.A., and Terrence Stamp basically goes around punishing the city to find out where his daughter is. Very a little more brutal, intense kind of Taken sort of movie with Terrence Stamp.
The original Liam Neeson.
Dude. And so, yeah, this was still, I mean, this was right around the time of Ocean's 11. So Soderbergh was getting pretty popular, but he did this really small indie, and the poster is very similar to the Chinatown one in that it's got like little LA things and cigarettes. It's a very noir kind of movie. So I used to have them side by side. It's in my closet. I don't have room for it right now, but I'm a big Soderbergh fan.
So I'm just gonna. Are you guys getting feedback on me? I'm
People hearing sound feedbacks.
Yeah, are you guys getting that? Is the chat getting feedback from when I'm talking? No, it's not. So never mind. Cool.
I'm not hearing it. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, now it's gone. Whatever happened. So
all right,
I want to kick out. I got issues after that last comment that he just made towards you. So
this one
after that one. Yeah.
Hey, everybody has their hot takes, and that's clearly yours, man. Take. So let's get into this, though. Let's dive in where we want to roll here and see kind of where this is going. As always, Greg is the graphic designer extraordinaire for this show. I just don't have the skill or time that he's got to pull this off. So huge props to the cool look of these slideshows every time.
And yeah, I will say I'm trying to figure out. So this is my plea to the chat. So last time when we did sports, we did kind of where we listed, and then we kind of got where we just put. The next time we did, like, we put the movie in a poster. I've added some new twists here on this one. So as you guys in the chat, like, what would you guys like to see on these slides that can help with the discussion and things? If this is something you guys like, let us know. Shoot us an Instagram message to me or John and DM. We'll let you guys know.
And we wanted this to be something more visual than just two talking heads. Right. And so it's kind of a fun way to have something to look at. Hopefully it works out that way for people. And I agree. I hope this is something interesting. If not, you can watch it on the replay, time travel wise.
That's right. So we said we broke it up into 4. We got 2 tonight. We're starting off. We're punching you right in the gut. We're going dark themed time travel movies. So because I feel like I didn't want to end the night with like
no.
So I'm like, so we're gonna end the night on action movies because we're all.
And next week we got the humor and the romance. This week is the kill 'em all or I'm gonna die because of time travel.
Right.
So these are the heavier, more maybe cerebral or intense, and there's some fun debate to be had here. I think I kind of sold Greg or forced Greg to kind of put a movie here that the chat might agree goes in another spot, but we'll see.
Yep,
First up in our dark themed time travel movies, we've got the one I had to sell you on, I think, a little bit. And so let me give my pitch to the chat on this one as to the way I was exposed to it. Because I know a lot of people in the chat are going to be saying, this is an action movie, John. It's not a dark dystopian anything. And I will say that when I watched this movie the first time, for me, it's part and parcel with movies like Halloween, where you have a relentless killer slowly hunting the virgin girl. I mean, it's basically the same genre of like a horror film. And for me, like, this movie is less action than the sequel and all the other sequels after. And for me, a little more horror. For me, it feels a darker film than the other films. And that's kind of why I argued that it should have this place in this category. So in my opinion, this film is not an action movie the same way Alien is not necessarily an action film, even though they both have action sequences. I really do enjoy this film a ton. And there are some really cool action moments. But for me, you could watch this with Halloween, and moment by moment, there's a follow through of how the virgin woman is being hunted by the killer and she has to like use her wits to stay ahead of the unstoppable horror monster.
Well, and I think what's interesting too is Terminator sets a door for T2 to be a completely full-on action movie, right? Like it by just the setup alone, but also then by the budget. Like James Cameron, right. You look at that, like it allows him to make it more. Where I feel like this has to, as I rewatched this, I had to look at it from the mindset of, it is a darker theme, and I think even the action is darker action, right? Like you watch that scene where, by the way, we spoil and talk about movies here, so if you guys haven't watched any of these movies, watch our show. But like when the scene where he goes into the police station, like it's brutal of like what he's just nonstop, and so I think like where I feel like the action is not, it's different in that, right? Like and so I think it does set up that more of it started out into the kind of horror vibe that you were talking about, right? Like,
because it's cheaper to make those kind of movies. The soundtrack and the cinematography and the mood play the excitement versus being able to spend 15 minutes in a freeway chase with a semi truck crashing into things and shooting off of motorcycles and jumping on the hoods of cars and things. A smaller budget, like $6 million to make this movie, is going to restrict that creativity and those options.
Well, and it's interesting that you compared it to like the horror movies, right, of that era too, because I actually got to rewatch all the movies that we're talking about of in the dark themed these past couple weeks, and the special effects are really dope at points for that era, and then there are some really bad, like they literally, like when he has his eye ripped out in this, and it's like he's looking in the mirror, like it's the most prosthetic, like train wreck of a scene of it, but that's why he wears the glasses.
Right, but it makes the glasses look freaking cool,
right?
I agree. And a lot of people in the chat are feeling like some really love it, and some are saying it's an inferior film. I think I probably have more nostalgia for it because of when I watched it, and I was in a big horror phase as a kid. I loved Nightmare on Elm Street, and I loved Halloween, and this movie, and it was just an era of like, these are so cool. Watching the like bad guy that can't be stopped, and the one girl who has to rise to the occasion. In all three of those cases, you have the woman who has to like defeat the villain, and I thought it was for me, it just was part of that. That was like a trilogy almost for me, was Nightmare, this, and you could throw in Alien too if you want. All of these really badass women fighting against unstoppable killing machines.
Well, I think that's a James Cameron love that he has of that, which is fine. But I mean this movie is it's stacked with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, being exposed. Michael Biehn. Is it Biehn? Ben?
Michael Biehn. I think it's Biehn. Yeah, I think it's Biehn.
Yeah. Which refreshed my memory was like he was like a James Cameron like fan, like because he was in Aliens, he was in James Cameron's The Abyss.
Yeah.
And then
they were like best buds for a while, and then they had a falling out, as far as I understand. Okay. I don't know how it stands anymore, but they were very close for sure.
He is a guy too that like he was like you would imagine was like going to be the next kind of action star just because of like some of the movies that he was in. And then
Ruben Guzman and I are on the same level here. Like, this is exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, I think Terminator is a staple. I understand people who feel like it's a classic turd. And that it doesn't hold up. I think it's a very, very good movie for its time and for the amount of money they had. And for me, I have a ton of nostalgia for it. Absolutely.
Well, and that was one of the things that spawned me onto like when I was looking at what are some fun facts. Like I thought like the budget for this, and like look at what it made opening weekend, and I just stuck with domestic because if you want worldwide gross, it was basically double of whatever.
Yeah.
Like, but I thought it's interesting because I think a lot of times when we're comparing movies, we look like, well, this was horrible. This was, this was so, and it's like, yeah, but look what they did at the time that they were in and the money that they had.
Right.
Like it's even hard to compare a Terminator to a Terminator 2 because of the time that they were created
and the jump in special effects, right?
Right.
The cost of doing digital effects versus building all these prosthetics,
and the cost of money that they have then to do
Right.
that. Like you might. I'm on the fan page, I think, with a handful of people in the chat. I like T2 better.
I do, and I do too. I
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
love
you
T2
don't get
better.
T2, and you don't get that without it doing, Terminator doing what it did.
Absolutely.
So,
sorry, I missed the. I'll be back. There it was. Sorry, 5 more times. Just keep coming. Just keep coming back. But let's keep rolling. Let's see what's next here in these dark sci-fi time travel movies. I am a big Duncan Jones fan. I love Moon. I don't know if you've seen Moon. Great movie. But for me, this movie, I didn't expect much from it. The first time I saw source code, I was like, oh, what's this movie about? And the acting is great. Vera Farmiga is awesome. Jeffrey Wright is awesome. Jake Gyllenhaal carries this because it's basically just him top to bottom. And what a trippy, cool time travel movie. In my opinion, this is very similar to Denzel's Deja Vu movie. If you've seen Deja Vu, where they're trying to stop a terrorist act and they're using a time travel sort of system. This is the far superior film. I just think it's so dark, and the dark twist at the end just hits you in the gut. It's like, oh, wow. And I think it's beautifully presented. It does not have a happy ending. It does not even reveal really how this is all going to turn out. It's a really cool, underrated small film.
This is where I'm going to disagree a little with you.
Go for it.
Because I had opinions coming into it. This is one that I actually feel like the way they ended it made it less of a darker themed movie, which
okay.
I think they put the last 15-20 minutes into it, that if that part wasn't in it, it would have been a darker themed movie for me. There was more hope, I guess.
Okay, I can see that.
There were the last little twist that they did at the end with the last 15 minutes,
where she basically puts him back in.
Where she puts him back in the system. Like you already know the dark aspect of it, like, which I think it is a dark movie from the aspect of a lot of these dark themes is nothing you can do is really going to change stuff, right? Like that's kind of like it's a hopeless movie. And I think if they would have stuck with that at the end of like, there was some good that came out of it. And then, it almost was like they placate to him of, hey, we're going to give you this extra 15 minutes, that it kind of makes it a twist then from it lightens it a little bit, of you at least walk out going, oh, well, at least they had this. And you don't like
for me, that moment is window dressing, right? Because maybe it's just my take on it is he's not going to get to be with her. They're just going to unplug him and he's going to die. And that's a dark way to end for me. I was like, wow, what a way to end an action movie where you're like, your hero's a vegetable and we're unplugging him. And that's the end.
And that's why I said, if
spoiler alert
that way, that's why I feel it felt a little fan service to me to like, it's a dark theme movie. We're still going to give you this, just like, hey,
this blank hope that
we want it's not real, but we want you at least to walk away out of the movie theater happy. Right. And I'm okay walking out of a movie theater like that was hard. And not in like a bad way, but like I don't have to walk out with like sunshine and butterflies for me or like for a movie. And so I think that I feel like they did that a little bit with that last twist there even though realistically it still is, it's what we're talking about. They just kind of like, if you don't watch the movie and you're like casually watching the movie, the last 15 minutes you go, oh, well, it's a happy ending. He's with the You're like, okay.
And so people who haven't seen this, sorry that I spoiled a little bit of the ending there, but check out the twists. I think it's really great. And Duncan Jones, I mean, I know he's done some not so good movies like World of Warcraft, Perry. He did the World of Warcraft movie. But I also loved Moon with Sam Rockwell and the voice of Kevin Spacey. So I think he's got a fun sort of sci-fi style. I hear his movie Mute was pretty decent on Netflix. I haven't seen it yet. But I thought this was at least, it left me thinking a ton at the end.
Yeah, it does. And I think, any movie that you have Jeffrey Wright in is fantastic. So
I was rewatching Angels in America, and man, he is amazing in that. I don't know if you've ever seen that. What a masterpiece. And his performances are so varied and wild in that. But he won a Tony on Broadway, I think, for that. So it was like they brought him along to continue the role.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, so let's keep going through these darker time travel movies. And of course, it's Donnie Darko, which is another Perry rewatch time travel movie here.
Speaking of Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, right. Another Jake Gyllenhaal movie. Do you want to talk about this one first?
Sure. This was so funny rewatching this. This is one of those, because it's one I watched at the very beginning, right? When it came out, or in college, when it was, and I remember oh yeah, I forgot. And so rewatching, I'm like, is it a time travel movie? Until about halfway through, and it is crazy. I'm like, okay, yes. This cast, I put most of the cast on here because it is loaded.
Right.
It's loaded with people early on in their careers. This is one of those movies though where I think it sets a stage of, this is really where it was a dark timeline for me. The dark theme, this embodies it, because it's one of those movies where it's like, if you make changes right to the past, or you make changes because of the future, and it might not necessarily work out the way you want it to.
Right.
And, so is it better that if you can, make a change of not what? Well, if I eliminate myself from the equation here, these things won't happen.
All these other things could be better.
Right. What I think Donnie Darko does beautifully of this, it's not a black and white of if you pull yourself away, right? Because going throughout the movie, there some of the things that Donnie's character, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Donnie does, he really does he does a lot of not so great stuff, but he also does some stuff though that at least exposes some not great things
that other people might be,
people have done.
Yeah. And
if you take that away, that doesn't get brought to the light necessarily, but other aspects don't. So it almost is like you have to do this kind of weighing. That's why for me, this falls into this dark category, because it's not clear cut of what he, the choices he makes are right or wrong.
Right.
And the way the movie takes it is right or wrong, because you're like, well, yeah, but is this worse than this?
Right.
And
having a protagonist who clearly is not in the best state of mind making that choice.
Right.
You doubt their ability to make a good choice.
Yeah,
for sure. I wanted to say hello to Captain Comics. Hello. Thanks for coming by. I saw Carlito Classico in the chat. Hello to you. There were some people that came through, some discussing of Denzel Washington's better or lesser films going on here in the chat. Let's see here. I miss Dudes Talking Comics. It's been 19 years. I know. Donnie Darko's had a bad sequel since then. So a lot of things have passed into history during this time. Gray Matter Hulk, It's a Wonderful Life. Is it a time travel movie? I mean, that's a wonderful discussion topic, right? I never saw the sequel either, Jason. I did not hear anything good to hear about it.
Yep.
Darko was a mind F. I agree. That's kind of what stuck with me, and the song Mad World, which is so beautifully done here. So for me, what I loved about this movie is, even having seen it several times, I still feel like I find little nuggets in there that you can see the amount of thought that went into it. And the ideas are not black and white. The ideas are not given a clear cut, this was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. It's all sort of tainted with teenage angst.
Right.
And I can understand that being boring to watch or frustrating to watch, but for me, it was like, for me, I liked that aspect. That layer gave it a little more of the realism that maybe Back to the Future wanted to eschew and sort of say, like, no, we just want to be a comedy movie. Like, that's what we want to do. Darko was like, yeah, we don't want to be funny. We want to be like a little creepy, a little odd, a little dark. Yeah, the sequel is called S. Darko, and it's about his sister.
Yeah.
And I don't even think they have Maggie Gyllenhaal playing the part. I think they have a different actress.
No, they don't. I should have looked that up, but no one cares about. But
it was like a direct-to-video movie that was not popular, and it just bombed.
You know what, Chaos? You probably would like the sequel. You're right. Yeah, I always like watching these movies too and going, oh my gosh, what's Seth Rogen doing in that or something?
Right. And he was like, isn't he like the bully or whatever?
Yeah, one of the bullies. But
Noah Wiley as one of the teachers, and
that's what I was just gonna say. That
Drew Barrymore.
And I didn't even put Drew Barrymore on this, and she was great in this movie as well. But that scene with Noah Wiley and Jake Gyllenhaal when he's having the conversation with this teacher, and they're talking about like they're actually kind of talking about the movie, like the time travel aspect and like what it is, and that kind of just conversation of where it is about the philosophy of it behind it, and where basically Noah Wiley just kind of like, you can tell he's one of those like I agree with what you're going, but I can't agree with you.
I can't follow you.
I can't go down this path because I'm gonna get fired. So I think this was done. I want to say it was the Sundance movie, and they got it. So what happened with Donnie Darko was it got theatrical release, but if you notice, it was in 2001. Right. So it was in October of 2001. It got a very limited release because of the events that transpired with September 11th.
Right.
A month or it would have been a month and a half earlier at that time. And there is the plane crash. It plays an ultimate part in Donnie Darko.
Right.
And so a lot of companies were not putting it out or putting the promotion behind it because of we were in that state of can we talk?
I mean, it was a devastating plane crash in real life, and then a movie that uses a plane crash for a suicide.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, it's So as a result, it became a movie that more people found on video.
Yes,
and a year later than any time, and it became that kind of a cult movie.
Right. So it was because it was one of those like it was going to be released in like France or something first and things like that. And it's, but it definitely is. I haven't found too many people who love Donnie Darko who saw it in theaters.
Yeah, I never did. That's for sure. I remember too. Perry got this as a recommendation for him to watch on his channel, and he was like, "Dude, I don't really want to watch this movie. This is like a super creepy horror movie about some killer serial bunny thing." And I was like, dude, no, it's like a trippy time travel movie. You're all good. Like, you just check it out. So it's not a horror, but it is definitely dark in the themes where the heroes are dealing with the tragedies of time travel and some of the limitations of time travel.
And I think that's what makes it.
Yeah. So let's continue on here to a movie that the chat has mentioned several times. And for me, this is like a top 5 time travel movie, just period. An absolutely great movie. I'm a huge Terry Gilliam fan. And if you have seen, and I'm sure I can count on my man Gore Vidal to be typing a little paragraph about La Jette. So there was a French film that I had a teacher in college show me and my class called La Jette. It's very short. I want to say like 30 minutes or less. And it's all done in slides. It's kind of like you're watching a slideshow and you're just hearing narration. So they would show you a picture of an airport and you'd hear some people talking and then cut to the next slide. And it's basically the plot for 12 Monkeys. And that French film was very creative and original and different. It's even different compared to 12 Monkeys, which is totally different in its style, and inspired a really cool, trippy Terry Gilliam movie with like 3 great acting performances from Willis, Madeline Stowe, and Brad Pitt. Just an absolute trippy, badass mess.
Yeah, like rewatching this, I think I was messaging you. I'm like, I'm watching 12 Monkeys again. I forgot how bananas Terry Gilliam movies are, right? Like, cause he didn't do Imaginarium of Dr.
I think he did, but I always think of Time Bandits,
right?
And his Monty Python stuff,
right? But like, it's just so trippy and out there. But man, Bruce Willis and Madeline Stowe killed it. But Brad Pitt, especially in that first
in the asylum,
his role was fantastic. And obviously there was a reason that this is our first movie that we're talking about tonight that actually got nominations for an Oscar, because Brad Pitt, I think it was good in the rest of the movie, but that section where they're in the asylum, Brad Pitt crushed it.
Me too, but it was more. My crush for Madeline Stowe is probably more connected to Last of the Mohicans and Stakeout. But yeah, I'm with you.
Was Stakeout, was that the Richard Dreyfuss?
Richard Dreyfuss, where they're spying on her, which, by the way, does not hold up as well in the Me Too era.
Probably no.
So bad. There it is, Gore Vidal, La Jette, one of the most enigmatic scenes in film more than halfway through. And yeah, it's weird because it's a film without moving pictures. Yeah. It's stills, music, sound effects, and voiceover. And very unusual, the style of it. But really, it holds up well. I would not be surprised if it's on, YouTube somewhere.
I'm going to have to look to see.
It might just be on YouTube because it's a short. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I know that some DVDs of 12 Monkeys have it included. You can watch it. That's how I first saw it. Or I should say that's how I saw it the second time, because I checked my DVD after watching it in class.
I need to check. And also,
what did you say? Is this because of Lost in Comics saying?
Yeah. Since we're we are both comic channels that we don't talk about comics at all on this show, we can bring it back into the comic world because Frank Gorshin is in this movie, and he is the Riddler from Batman.
Yeah, he is
66 series.
Isn't he one of the doctors in the future?
Yeah, he's one of the doctors in it. Because I think he passed away early 2000s. So I mean, and he was in the Batman 66. So he is old school. But so it is to bring us back into comics.
That is cool that Frank Gorshin's in there. That is pretty cool. And we forgot Brazil is another great Terry Gilliam, or I should say, I think it's lesser Gilliam. I know that some people love it. I think it's just a little too trippy for me. It's too crazy.
I need to watch that. I'm going to watch this after the stream. Probably not this stream.
Boom. Look at all the people who went straight out and searched on YouTube. Is La Jette on YouTube, and it's there. So if you want to see the inspiration for 12 Monkeys, the short film, it's definitely worth your time.
Well, let me ask you this then, since we have our friends Chris, I'm assuming this is Chris from Lost in Comics, has not seen 12 Monkeys. It's streaming, I believe, on Amazon.
Nice.
So you can check it out. Would you, and Gore, this is for you too, would you recommend watching 12 Monkeys first or La Jette first and then watching? Because you can watch both. So if you have not seen either one, what would you do first?
That's a wonderful question. And I don't know that there's a wrong answer. They're different enough that I don't know that it matters. Obviously, what you can do with slideshow in French in 30 minutes versus what Terry Gilliam can do in 2 hours is dramatically different. And the story is much simpler. It's almost all in the airport. You know, that sequence at the end in 12 Monkeys that they go over again and again that he's remembering as a kid. Right. That's like a huge chunk of La Jette versus 12 Monkeys, which can get to so many different places and times. I don't know that it matters. I really don't know that it matters. I went 12 Monkeys and then La Jette, and I think most people probably did. and I don't think it matters. TJ says monkeys first. Boom.
Because it feels like it's one of those. I don't know. I haven't seen Liz yet, so I'm going to watch it this week because I want to now.
Right. Oh yeah, it'd be a great addition to a Blu-ray collection for sure. And you definitely need to watch. As a fan of time travel movies, this is top 5 in my opinion. I just don't. There's no comment for me.
Watch it and let us know what you think.
Same with Mo. Yeah, Mo, you need to check it out. This is a great movie. You're talking about Faces of Death. Oh my goodness. Come on, man. That's hilarious. Is Superman a time travel movie? We discussed that. We had a conversation. In fact, Greg was certain I was going to push hard for that as a time travel movie. And I backed off of it because there's so many other, in my opinion, better choices for this topic.
So, John, now who do you listen to? You've got TJ saying monkeys first, but you've got Gore saying Layla.
Logette, yeah. I just don't feel there's a wrong answer. They're both really good. They stand up on their own. They have a little connective tissue, clearly, but I don't know that it matters.
I just wanted you to have to pick between your friends Gore.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to play that game. People get run over, car accidents, jumping off buildings, people shot, hacked up by cartels. Watch it all. Okay, there you go. Good to know. I don't know what movie this is, but it sounds amazing. It's probably Faces of Death. Now that I really think about it. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know what else you can say about 12 Monkeys except that it is just. What I love about it is there's a quote early on in the movie when Bruce Willis is in the future and they're going to be sending him back in time, where somebody says, time travel is not a science. Science is not a science with these people, and it's this wonderful look at time travel where it's not pretty. It is not beautiful, sleek machines. It is not romanticized. It is gritty and dirty and problematic and inaccurate. Science is not a science with these people. And I love that element.
Well, and I think you make a valid point, which is why I think it gets nominated for best costume because of the design of it. When you talk about time travel, you talk about future, it always is a sleek, bad haircut, futuristic time frame. Because we'll talk about bad haircuts if we talk about Time Cop, because holy buckets. But I think it gives us kind of this raw, gritty time travel of where, right. It looks like almost like a hodgepodge of technology put together. And even in the movie, it's a crapshoot. They're kind of like, we're going to try here. Hopefully it works out.
And Gore's dropping some great romance time travel movies. So then Gore, stick around next weekend when we do humor and romance categories. Mm-hmm. But we're doing the heavier stuff first. TJ's got some good sci-fi drops on time travel, but isn't time travel always technically science fiction? But that's a whole debate for another time. Let's continue on through these darker ones into, I know that the science fiction comic book movie community nerd group has some serious Rian Johnson beefs, and I get it. I still think Looper is just an awesome, depressing, heavy, wild ride through time travel for me. I really, really enjoy Looper. I love the way they make Joseph Gordon-Levitt look like Bruce Willis. I'm super happy that they didn't just special effect it, that they did make up prosthetics elements for him. I just dig this movie. I think this movie is super underappreciated because I think he was hot and now he's definitely not.
Yeah. What you're saying, Rian Johnson isn't hot anymore?
I think Rian Johnson, I know that Knives Out gave him a little more street cred. I honestly think it's going to take years before people are willing to just forget that he made The Last Jedi. I think it's going to take a ton of time.
I think there is a market though of people that really like what he did. Because 30 seconds, time me. 30 seconds Star Wars right here. Everyone was up in arms about episode 7 because it felt like a rehash of New Hope. It was the same formulaic aspect. So when Ryan Johnson got the reins, he then said, okay, you guys don't like this. I'm going to take it in a different route, and I'm going to not have that flip. People didn't like it. They went back to episode 9, that formulaic aspect, and people were like, oh, this is the same rehash stuff. It's like, well, what do you want, people? So there's my 30-second rant that I don't love Last Jedi, but I don't crap on it like everyone else does. So sorry.
And I guess clearly we're in the same boat on that. I will say I'm probably biased in that I've met Ryan Johnson. He came to my film festival when I was working there a bunch. He's a Southern California guy. He shot Brick with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which is a freaking great movie. He shot it like 30 minutes from where I'm living. I like Ryan Johnson as a person, and I generally that bled into giving his movies a little bit more of a shot. And movies like The Brothers Bloom or Looper or Brick, I think were just really epic. Really, I mean, I don't want to say epic. Really, really tightly wound films that had a lot of great layers that built into a really intense ending for both. Even the comedy Brothers Bloom, I think it built to a really fun, exciting, intense ending. And in this, I think he does things with time travel, like the guy who's, he's running away and they're torturing him and he's losing his hands and he's climbing the fence. He does things that stick with you, really stick with you.
Which that was Paul Dano.
Yeah.
Basically those aspects of where like they capture him and then are slowly like cutting off limbs.
Oh my God.
And
so creepy.
See the nose and he gets to the Skeletor, the Frank Langell, like Skeletor from He-Man nose, like because of what they're doing. Like I think those were elements that I'm like, it made it super intriguing here. Carlito, I know you said you haven't watched it, so I'm going to try to not spoil stuff, but I'm going to kind of go in a route a little bit that I want to talk about because I think this is the epitome of kind of what we're talking about in the dark, right? Like, so Carlito, I'll give you a thumbs up when I'm done, but this is your 30-second. You have 10 seconds to mute it before I hop into my little rant. And then I'll give you a thumbs up when I'm done. So, but the idea of the whole concept of time travel, right? Like this aspect of the rain, like going to stop the Rainmaker from happening because of what he's going to do to the world in the future, right? This is the age-old tale of if you had the opportunity to go back in time, would you kill baby Hitler, right? Like this is that same concept a little bit, but it's just presented in a different way, right? Like in a not like, because I think that's presented a lot in that those concepts, and the ability of knowing that your actions might cause something to happen through the midst of everything, and so is it if you can deal with your actions and not let those actions happen to then have like that's why for me it's a dark time travel because there's no hope, like it's not a happy ending in it. There's aspects that make it like, oh, well, they saved this, they saved these aspects, but they didn't save, the main character, right? Like he still had those choices, that the tough ones he had to make. So
they're into Star Wars now, and I'm sorry that I started that discussion.
That's fine.
But I think to your point about Star Wars and about this, what I like about Ryan Johnson is he is not afraid to take risks. Right. You're not going to watch a Ryan Johnson movie and say, oh, I've seen that before. It's just not going to happen. And what I love is he's able to take a genre like time travel movies in this case, or Star Wars movies, or Brick takes noir like detective movies and gives it a totally new perspective. And I think that makes him a very original voice. And I always value that over somebody like J.J. Abrams. As much as I like Force Awakens and I'm fine with Rise of Skywalker, I got bored with the repetitive stuff. And I mean, I'm not going to like rip on any of the Star Wars movies except maybe Attack of the Clones. But the truth is I appreciate a filmmaker who takes risks. Yeah. And that is Ryan Johnson to a T.
Yeah, you're good, Carlito. I told you I'd give you a thumbs up. You're good. So I mean, I think it is. I think it's I think sometimes we want like our cookie cutter, what we're used to. And then when we get it, we go, oh, I didn't want that. I wanted something.
Right.
So is he the Tom King of movies? Because people didn't like Tom King's run on Batman because he took something that was very like, this is what you do. But when
I think some people say that's mean.
different,
That's either mean to Tom King or it's mean to Ryan Johnson. I don't know which one.
I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just asking. Hot take, right?
That's a hot take on a hot take.
Here's the deal. I know Chaos said he liked Ryan Johnson's The Last Jedi. He didn't hate it. And I know he likes Tom King's Batman. So that's what made me think of that correlation.
There you go. And I'm basically right there as well. I don't hate either one. So
right. So
all right. So now let's get into some sentimental dark picks. I went with Primer. And shout out to those of you indie movie fans in the chat. I know that I got issues mentioned this movie. This movie cost $7,000 to make. They basically could sell a used car and make this movie. It grossed almost 100 times that. Well, I guess 50 times that. What an amazing achievement. And it's all due to the real creative thinking of people like Shane Carruth. I don't know that I'm going to say his name right. If you've never heard of Primer, you're not alone. This is clearly a tiny movie. It didn't even make $1 million in the United States when it was in theaters. This movie is just awesome. It's a movie. It's definitely dark. It's definitely like a movie that is going to challenge your thoughts about time travel. I would compare it in some ways to a low budget version of the show Dark, in that you really have people pushed to the edge and not trusting one another, not knowing who to trust, because the second time travel and human nature are brought into connection, you have people who make bad choices.
And this is a sentimental pick. A lot of people have not seen this probably because it's impossible to get. The library didn't have it. I looked at Half Price Books when I was out hunting this week, and it's not streaming. So I took John's word for it, and it's on my list that if I ever see it, an opportunity to see it, I will watch it.
And Carlito, if you've never heard of Primer, you're not alone. But I will say, if you're willing to spend the $10 and buy the DVD off of Amazon or rent it off of Amazon, it's going to be worth it. I think you will be shocked at what these indie filmmakers with no real stars could do for $7,000. And they will make you believe that they came up with an idea for time travel. It's really cool.
Yeah, I need to see it. I'm excited.
So it's like a super indie film, like a first-time director's first movie. It's serious science fiction, but again, it's dark. It's not a happy anything. All right, let's see. Did you have a sentimental pick? No, moving into action.
Yeah, I didn't. Nothing came to mind when I made my list of where I was looking of like it isn't gonna hop on. So like we're not gonna force it if we don't have something. So
no, we shouldn't. No, absolutely.
I got what I wanted. So
So these are the big budget action movies that when you think of time travel action movies, these are going to be some of those. So let's see, kicking it off, it has to be the tip of the spear, top of the pyramid, Terminator 2. And what do you guys say about this movie?
I mean, we talk about like an action movie to its core, right? This is what, 7 years after Terminator?
Yeah, it was a good little while. They took it some time. Cameron made a couple other movies in between, didn't he?
Right. Just curious, what was the budget for Terminator now that we're talking? Can you look back at this? Can you go back?
I thought it was in the millions. Let me scroll back here. $6 million.
Okay.
Now we're at 102.
So that's what I'm saying. 6 years later, technology is different. The amount of money that he was able to make,
right?
I think what's interesting too, right? Like this is the Terminator that I think most of us remember. We remember, and I'm saying most of us. I know some of you guys are like, no, not me. This is a Terminator though that I remember. Like I remember watching this. I might have seen this before I saw the first Terminator, if I'm being honest.
Sure, a lot of people did, I think,
and like it threw me off of like, wait, he's the good guy, and this makes no sense. He's a bad guy in this, like,
yeah.
Like, where are those aspects of it?
Did you think it operated well enough if you hadn't seen the original?
Yes.
Okay, because I wouldn't know that experience, so I'm curious.
Well, I think so from that aspect. I'm going off of my own gut that I feel like Terminator 2 I was allowed to see earlier than I was for Terminator.
Sure.
Because I might be wrong. I don't think there's nudity in T2.
I mean, there's his butt.
Okay.
Arnold's naked butt a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, but like, there's not the sex scene that like.
No, there's no sex scenes.
Michael, in the first.
Got rid of Michael Biehn.
Right. So my mom was very like, she's like, if it's violent or like language, she would just say cover my eyes. We don't say that. But if there was sex nudity, she was like no. So so I think I did see this because I think I was allowed to because there wasn't nudity. That's why I think so. But I can't honestly give you a real like yes.
Definitive. No. I was just curious because I had watched the original of.
But I think by the time what you highlighted though is true. I think you're seeing the effects of what movie making. Like I'm sure there is other reviews who have sat there and like T2 has to be one of those like groundbreaking, game-changing effects movies,
right?
That changed the game. And I mean, and people notice it. It got loads of awards, loads, but four Oscars for an action movie.
Man, boy, and so, but just to double check, between Terminator and Terminator 2, he made Aliens and The Abyss. And obviously, The Abyss has that water effect that clearly was the precursor of the liquid metal effect.
Right.
And yeah, I think the quality of effects, the jump in effects, combined with the huge jump in budget, and I think Arnold really knowing how to act. I think Arnold grew a ton as an actor, knowing how to play a persona on screen that matched with what people felt like was true to him. Well, and giving him the chance to then play the good guy.
Isn't there like he said like what, like 66 words or something in like Terminator?
It's tiny. Yeah, it's very few.
Like you literally only said like 66 total words or something insane like that. So like he doesn't have to do much acting in that movie as much as it's just the action part where they, like you said, this kind of opened the door to allow him to become the main leading star even more so because he's actually acting.
Right. He gave him a chance. He does a little light comedy. He gets to save the day a couple of times. I do think it makes a huge, huge difference just as him as a performer. There's some interesting comments from Gore, as always, on H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. Some people talking about Skynet. Oh, my goodness. That's a hot take. Let's see here. It's a sci-fi premonition, basically. Okay, there you go. People talking about Watchmen. Willow is the first CGI in film, right?
It's a great film.
So there's some comedy going on here. So for me, yeah, I think this is definitely more of an action, and the first film more of a horror, which I kind of made that comment earlier. Yeah. I do agree. Yeah, Edward Furlong is very annoying, but that's kind of his part, and that's kind of what they were going for. Robert Patrick is perfect. He's a great, great role here, and Linda Hamilton is a boss. I think this film holds up remarkably well.
Yeah, this like Linda didn't have this chance to shine as like, the boss like you're talking about in Terminator. She had her moments, but it was like, no, this is where she gets her like, her Sigourney Weaver aspect of where she's like, you're gonna be you're not going to be someone that people mess with, right? Like, and it holds weight. I think the last time I was at Universal Studios was like 2003, so 12 years after this movie. They were still doing this movie in 3D theater, like, because it's still I doubt it that's not there at Universal anymore, but like it's for 11 years for a 3D movie, and it could be longer. I don't know. People can let me know. Like, that tells you like the legitimacy of, like, you know, that they brought people in, like it was really cool. So like, but I think that's a testament to the movie in and of itself.
Totally. Absolutely. And I will say it's also one of the few times I went to a movie with my dad and he fell asleep in this movie. I was like, and we still bring it up to this day as a burn on my dad. How do you fall asleep in T2? But,
so this would be one of those that we probably, it sounds like we both will put we actually like the sequel, because people always go, name a movie that you like the sequel more than the original.
Definitely. And I think James Cameron, is often kept on that list for this and Aliens. And I posted recently my favorite sequel, and I think it would probably have to be Aliens for me. I would probably go just because I rewatched that movie the last year, and it's just on every level it holds up, and it's just a masterpiece movie. But that's not to say anything against any other movie. It's just how to choose between these movies is challenging. I gave a quick preview of Time Cop when I was zipping back through the list here, and you were joking about haircuts, action, time travel. Jean-Claude Van Damme does need to make an appearance. This is his probably greatest film. I mean, some Bloodsport fans might be upset by that. Love me some Mia Sara. Love me some villain Ron Silver. I think this movie is awesome and just an absolute ridiculous farce and hilarity. And I love this movie. I will legitimately like this movie. And don't blame your dad for falling asleep. Look, there it is.
This is the epitome of mid-90s action movies. This was one of those, like, it was up there as like, you know, like
this one.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
I haven't seen it either. Yeah.
So, but like his movie, like, this is the epitome, like, that sounds bad, but like, this is your essential mid-90s action movie, right? Like, he makes the punch you in the face, and then like his joke at the dad joke at the end, the guy's arm freezing.
Oh my god, that effect does not hold up. Yeah,
and then kicking it, and then Jean-Claude Van Damme like kicking it off, and then you just see like his arms gone, and then it's just like
it's just red crystals.
It's like crystallized there. Like it looks like his shoulder blade was left in the freezer too long.
You didn't even get into the blending of Ron Silver's when that turns into just like an amorphous blob of phony jelly.
So I got this is all fresh in my head because I got to watch it last night to
Good for you.
Reboot it, because it was like, it's one that I know I watched and I just hadn't, but it, you know, it's just one of those movies that, like, you know, can we go to the next slide real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my god.
I love it because I want to just know, like, the director, like, hey, how can we get Jean-Claude? I feel like it's written in the Jean-Claude Van Damme's contract. I have to do the splits.
The splits at some point. But this was the most like creative use of the splits. He does the splits to keep from dying from electrocution so that the bad guys die instead. I mean, it makes total sense, Greg. Stop arguing the logic of it.
Because he has a water cooler in his house in 1994. I don't know too many people that had water coolers in their house in 1994.
So now, what are you upset that he's ahead of the curve?
Yes, I am.
How do you get out of that? There's no logical way to get out of that position, Perry. There's no logical way.
But I'm just like, I'm like.
Why? Have you guys seen his commercial where he's like splitting between the two cars?
On the sunrise?
Oh my god! Holy crap!
So we can go back to the other. That's fine. So, just this quintessential Jean-Claude Van Damme, right? Like the guy's arm freezes off, and then like because earlier, right before that scene, Ron Silver's character is like, "You shouldn't say freeze." Like I don't like that's, and then like after that, he's like, "Oh, should I have said it then?" Like it's just like,
oh my gosh!
please take everything I'm saying, gang, as I still absolutely love it. Like it fits into this, like it's essential 90s, right? Like, but this is, we talk about the future, right? Like we were talking about how 12 Monkeys doesn't have, it's kind of a hodgepodge of technology is mixed in there. This is that very future.
It's like even when they try to say it's a more dystopian, the future has changed. It's a little darker, a little creepy. It's still like a sleek, cool machine. The effect, that ripple effect, it's all very beautiful and not very like raw.
Right.
Kachung, this week is dark and action. Next week is comedy and romance. So definitely come back around next week if you're looking for some Hot Tub Time Machine chat for sure. Your wife's goulash, always too much salt.
That's, I know you're my best friend.
Bruce McGill. Gotta love Bruce McGill.
Yeah.
For me, Bruce McGill is always going to be God because he basically played God in the Quantum Leap finale. Time travel coming back around, folks. Boom. Bruce McGill is time travel. And this movie is probably the most ridiculous of all the movies that we're going to talk about tonight. Because it's a Jean-Claude movie. Like, what do you expect? But at the same time, it is immensely watchable and enjoyable. And it is easily his most relatable performance where you're watching him and you're like, oh, he's the dad and the husband and it's like you feel for him a ton more in this than in most Jean-Claude movies.
Right.
Should we move on here? Are you ready?
I feel like I've dominated the conversation on Time Cop, so I'll let you.
No, I mean, I really do enjoy it. I'm a big I like Ron Silver as well. I think he's an underrated character actor, and he chews the scenery kind of classically as this awful politician in this. I just really liked his performance too. Yeah. So there's your splits again. Enjoy it because we're moving on to Planet of the Apes, folks. The original Charlton Heston debut. Dirty Apes. It's this iconic movie. And is it a time travel movie? I think you could definitely have some discussions around this movie. Is it a time travel? Alternate dimensions versus time travel. How do you disparage those things or sort of break up those things? For me, this feels like a time travel movie. Because he comes back and it's the future, but then you could argue Interstellar by the same token. I absolutely think this is a classic. It's hilarious. It's amazing. The costumes don't hold up, but they don't hold up in just the right way for me. And just a movie that started or at least continued a genre of science fiction that I think obviously clearly exists today with 3 or 4 movies today.
And how many movies were in the original? Like, because this also was one of those that spawned a lot.
Yeah, and they were famous for the films connecting.
Yeah.
The original series of films, which was like 5 films, connected, where you could jump in theoretically at any point and watch all the films in a loop and they would connect back around. So it didn't really matter which movie like you picked as your entry point. Obviously you'd want to start here because this is the good one, but yeah.
And to answer your question, I got issues. Yes, this is actually based off of the Mark Wahlberg movie, which makes
I think that's how it went.
Movie because
Wahlberg and then Heston.
Back in the time, it based it off Mark Wahlberg's movie that was in 2004. It comes back around, and that's the ultimate time travel movie like that.
Yeah, there was an original film, there was a TV series, there was a remake in 2001 with Wahlberg, and then since then they've had 3 theatrical films with a 4th one in the works somehow.
Right.
And I will say I really do like the new films a ton.
And when you're saying the new film, you're talking past. You're ignoring the Mark Wahlberg, and
I'm ignoring the Mark Wahlberg and Tim
you're
Burton
going straight
stuff.
to like the James Franco.
Yeah. If you go straight to the stuff that they're doing currently, the 4 films they're working on currently, it is really, really good. But for me, what I think I love about this film is the journey that Heston goes on, and the reveal at the end is I mean, it's the freaking cover of the DVD now. It's so iconic, that moment of seeing the Statue of Liberty. Is it time travel? Obviously it's up for debate a little bit. For me, it has to be, because of the Statue of Liberty being in the ocean at the end. They're clearly in the future. So for me, it falls into that category.
Yeah. And I think it has to. It's funny. Everyone's like, oh, the Wahlberg one's so bad. It's one of those few DVDs. I'm going to try it again. Like, I'll pop it in to see. The DVD has a scratch on it, so it always skips like at 10 minutes and it won't go. I'm like, oh, this is just the world telling me no.
Hey, it's on a time loop.
Don't do it. It won't let me watch it. My own DVD's like, no, it's so bad, I won't let you watch it.
Gorvidal says he saw it in the theater originally. Remarkable films. Rod Serling wrote the original screenplay. It's a classic. Yeah, and for me, it is a classic, and I do think it, despite makeup effects continuing to get better and better, I think it does hold up. Yeah. And mostly because they had a statement to make, and the reveal at the end fit the story they were selling, and I thought it worked really well. Does Mad Max fit in? It's a future film, but there's no past, no time traveling going on. And yeah, Superman does have time travel, and that was debated. We did discuss that for sure.
So it might pop up sometime if we have a category.
Yeah.
It might not. Who knows?
For sure. And then lastly, is this the last one? I think
no, there's one more after this.
One more after. The chat has mentioned Endgame, and I think for me, if it was a choice between Superman or Endgame, which movie is a better time travel movie? It's Endgame. Superman has that important scene, but Endgame, it's the crux of the movie in a big, big way. And it's what the movie is really all about. Yeah, Endgame, duh. Like, it has to be. I also thought, as much as I am frustrated with the device of time travel as like the MacGuffin in the film, I like the fact that you were able to revisit great moments from the MCU as a way of saying goodbye. And saying goodbye to certain characters, of course, but saying goodbye to this epic first 20-something movies. And I know that time travel inherently has plot holes. And that's the part that nags at me and makes this, for me, a lesser Avengers movie. I'll put a bunch of movies ahead of this on my list personally because of the plot holes that are inherent with it. But it doesn't negate the emotional punch you get seeing Tony talking to his dad, seeing Cap stare at Peggy Carter through the window. There are moments that make up for it for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is the aspect of where when you say I hate, like when you're like, hey, let's talk time travel movies, this is where I automatically go to. And I'm prefacing, I liked Avengers Endgame, and so just hang in, don't like jump down my throat here, chat, yet.
Go ahead.
But like, I hate when a movie feels like they use time travel as a plot device to just make something work that they don't know how to write something different.
Right.
And so I feel like a lot of, especially action time travel movies, that's what happens. And so I mean, and I'm going from my experience because these are movies I saw in theaters, right? Infinity War. I felt the moments lessened because I already knew everything that was coming. Like when the goes, because I knew what was going to happen at the end of, well, they're going to come back. They're going to make some type of time travel. So I went in with Endgame I went in pretty like hesitant. Like I don't like, cause I had my opinion already on time travel movies. And I think what happens for me though is I thought for an action movie they did well enough. They did time travel well enough.
Exactly.
But there's plot holes. I mean,
and I will say I firmly disagree with this plot hole. The idea that Captain America selfishly stays in the past and somehow breaks the pre-established rules from earlier in the film. He only breaks the pre-established rules if he affects the past. If he goes back and just basically camps out in Peggy Carter's house and never really affects anything happening in the real world, he has not broken the pre-established rules. They don't have kids. She dies of cancer without children or Alzheimer's. He does not jump up and show up at key moments through history like freaking Forrest Gump or anything. For me, that moment works because he basically is saying, I'm done with this hero thing. Other people are clearly able to take over, and I'm gonna take a back seat, which might bother people like Jason, who says Cap would never do that. But cinema Cap versus comic book Cap, yeah, I'm willing to let that go.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, my biggest problem with the movie wasn't even probably the time travel aspect. It was that it, again, to me, and if someone in the chat can correct me of why it's not lazy writing to me, let me know. I will change. I am 100 easily persuaded to change. But when they're randomly drawing, like, who's going to go where, who's going to go to this timeline, like, that they're just like, oh, Hawkeye and Black Widow are like, yeah, sure, we'll go to where the Soul Stone is. Like, not knowing what was going to have to transpire for them to get the Soul Stone. Like, it was just a luck of the draw. Like, and so that's where we talk about, like, okay, what would if Rocket went and it was his ship? Like, is that what's going to, like, it was just Rocket and Thor.
What's he going to sacrifice?
How would they get it? Like, so...
Right.
It's one of those, I think we talked about this with sports movies, right? Of where does the line of believability go? Yeah. Like, where is it? For me, that was the one part where I go, that feels lazy to me that it was random luck. And I get it. There's so many other things in this movie that shouldn't be the part that goes, wait, that's your issue with it? Like, but I think I was actually impressed with how they did the time travel aspect of the movie because I guess that it was well enough.
I disagree with both of these. Firstly, that's the kind of minutia stuff that drives me crazy with like Star Wars and Star Trek fans. Yeah. Oh no, the hyperdrive is not on deck D; it's on deck C. And he would never do this. And he would ignore 9/11. And I just totally firstly, like, pump the brakes. Like, I think that's a little bit intense. Second, Cap knows that stuff works out and bad things are going to happen whether he's there or not. He's learned that lesson. I'm willing to just let all of that go. I don't know that in the MCU, in the movies, I don't remember her ever having kids, but maybe on her Peggy Carter show, she had kids. If she had kids, then maybe she always had kids with Steve Rogers, and it was always that way. The making out with his niece, I don't know. I just think that I think it's extreme to go to that level of like break it down. I think it works for Cinema Cap. For me, it works for Cinema Captain America. He didn't hide his entire life. He put in his time. He's allowed to retire, and Cinema Cap would retire. He's not comic book Cap, who would be Cap forever because he's never going to age and it's comic books. Cinema Cap is not the same as, Cinema Cap was always questioning, should I keep doing this? Right. Cinema Cap all through his movies was saying, I'm not going to keep doing this. I can't keep doing this. Is not being in the military, being part of the Avengers. I don't want to do any of this. He kept questioning it. For me, it works.
And this is why we had to put this on anyways, just because I knew we get hot takes.
Well, I mean, I get it. Like, traditionalists want traditional Cap, but that's the comics. Go read the comics. It's not the movie Cap. Movie Cap is not comic book Cap. It's just not going to ever be. It could never be. And same with Iron Man or any of them. They're different.
Yeah. Carlito, I want to acknowledge you. I see what you're saying in the chat. I feel like, and maybe I need to rewatch it. I feel like they don't get to those knowledge until they get to there and know what they have to do. I don't think they knew and maybe I'm just misremembering. I don't think they knew that they had to, what they would have to sacrifice to get what they needed to until they had that interaction with the Red Skull there at that moment. So that's where I'm saying, like, I get everything that you're saying there. And maybe I just need to rewatch it and I haven't watched it. So I'll click to that part and just see. But
yeah, absolutely.
But
for me, compared to Superman, this has a ton more functional time travel in it.
Right.
And again, the time travel allows the story to relive great MCU moments and kind of dive back in again, which is definitely my favorite part about it for sure.
Right.
Yeah. See, Jason, this is where you and I have always disagreed and why we disagree on Tom King. You can't expect the identical vision of a character in a comic to be the identical vision of the character. You can't. You can hope, but you can't. I mean, the reality is a comic book can go on forever and Steve Rogers never ages. It's just not going to work the exact same way. I think those expectations are unrealistic. Just like to expect Batman to still be the same Batman from the Golden Age who's killing gangsters and hanging them off the side of his jet. Like, you can't expect the character to not evolve with different writers and different stories. So for me, movie Cap is different. It's just the way it is.
I think there also is. I think we are a niche group of people who, we read these stuffs. I would process to say 70% of people who saw Avengers Endgame don't read comics, and I'm probably I think the writer's job too partially is to make it, how can we attract people that aren't us, because we're gonna see it no matter what, and do it well enough. And so I think you have those aspects of, like, I attest, if you take the storyline of Civil War, which I thought was a great comic, I don't think it translates well to a movie. And I think so they made the changes that they made were important for that aspect to make it work well. But so,
yeah. And I think, those things are always going to go through changes, because you can't translate those comics into the movie. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have huge, huge changes across the board. By those same rules, I should hate Jurassic Park. I agree. They totally changed that but they made a very compelling movie. I think they made a very compelling movie. And I would disagree. I think the version of Cap that they present in the movies is very different than the version in the comics. If you look at the way that he is portrayed as somebody who is questioning this life career constantly, and not the same gung-ho soldier he is in the comics. But we're going to keep going here because we got more action movies. We're never going to get through them all if we sit in a Star Wars Avengers debate channel chat here. I love this movie, Edge of Tomorrow. I think I saw 2 or 3 people in the chat earlier mentioning Edge of Tomorrow. Although I know some people call it Live, Die, Repeat, because it went through a very unusual period of, is it this title or is it that title? Some DVDs don't even show Edge of Tomorrow on the title.
Well, the one movie poster literally is Live, Die, Repeat, and then it's a very thin line where it looks like Edge of Tomorrow is the tagline.
And I think whatever you want to call it, this is a very fun, very wild ride for time travel movies, and a hell of a lot of fun. A great vehicle for Tom Cruise, and Emily Blunt is awesome in this. Emily Blunt is a boss badass, and Doug Liman, who it can be hit or miss. Doug Liman, I think, really nails it on this movie.
Yeah, another one. Like I said, I got to watch this. I was excited. I remember enjoying it, and it held up for me of what I enjoyed. My only flaw with this movie is, and again, I got over it real quick, I don't like the setup of what they do with Tom Cruise's character to get him in that stage. I feel like it doesn't make sense. Like, I rewatched it a couple times, like, wait, why? Why is he?
You mean the government guys basically stuffing him in the suit and sending him off?
Like, why? Like, I get, and it just because yeah, it feels like it's one of those like I want to know the time frame, right? Of like what his character would do, because I feel like even knowing what he knew, you're not going to get the same. He is a sniveling nerd, kind of like I'm not going to do this stuff, and then he's like the most like, ooh, like you are, don't mess with you, right? Like, and I feel like that's a big switch to make in the midst of like
dying and coming back.
right. Like, so I like but again, like that's my small issue with it. Overall, I enjoyed it because I like someone in the chat said it is Groundhog's Day. It's an action version of Groundhog's Day on crack.
Yeah, I think you could definitely view it as the action version of Groundhog Day. I am a Tom Cruise fan. I know he's bonkers crazy. I know that I've watched enough documentaries on Scientology to know that it is something of a cult. But also I can put that aside and say this movie is a kick in the pants, a ton of fun. And I think he is very well suited to this part. He is something of a scumbag character who goes through quite an evolution, and all mostly due to the experiences connected to the Emily Blunt character. I really think this is a very deserving inclusion because this feels more like time travel even than Groundhog Day for me, in the sense that there is a science fiction device in place for the time travel, in that the DNA of the alien species and him, there's a connection there.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's kind of like it's an aspect for me of like, well, your character wouldn't do that. And I feel like you get that sometimes with Tom Cruise, like, hey, your character, you're not going to change that quick. Your character is not going to do that. It's the same type of thing with Time Cop with Ron Silver's character, right? Like,
right.
There's a lot of drastic change of the character where you go, yeah, but would he really do that? Is that the same person? Like it's so you have to kind of look at that sometimes. So I think the evolution is quick. I thought it's brilliant though, of the aspect of Emily Blunt steals the show. I like Tom Cruise. I'm not a Tom Cruise hater. I enjoy his movies, but Emily Blunt, I mean, she just straight up is like, all right, cool. Next. Yeah. Like, all right. Oh, like, at what point you don't need to go to training? Like, just go through this. She's like, I feel like she was just killing them randomly just to do it.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think there's a fun quality to the movie where she is clearly almost like a whole movie ahead of him. This is the sequel for her. Right. She lived a version of this where she was Tom Cruise and she had this ability and she was able to use it for X amount of time. And then he took over with it, and now it's his movie that she is the side character in. And for her, she is now having to guide him in the way that she thought would have been most effective for her, maybe back when she first had this problem.
So the chat's mentioned that this just poses a question. I'm just curious. Chat, you can answer this too, but John, I'm posing this to you. Chat said that they're working on a sequel to Edge of Tomorrow. If he ever stops doing Mission Impossible movies to make this happen.
Right.
Would you rather see a sequel to this movie, or would you rather see a prequel of seeing Emily Blunt try and develop into, because my guess is if you do a prequel of it, Emily Blunt's not going to be the hardened person that she is in this one. So would you rather see Emily Blunt at the beginning, kind of in the prequel stage of her trying to figure out what Tom Cruise is figuring out, or would you like to see where they can take this in a different way with a sequel or whatever they do?
For me, I think my answer is the same as it is for people when they pitch me similar things in comic books, which is I just want something that's well written. Like I don't have any predisposed anything. If they, you tell me tomorrow that there's going to be Black Batman, I'm not going to judge it. I want to read it. Is it a good story? Like, I don't care. I'm not going to instantly go in and be like, well, that's crap because Batman's Bruce Wayne and that's it. I'm going to be like, You write a really good story with Black Batman, and I'm going to be like, sweet, that was really cool. I'm glad somebody did that. It doesn't diminish Bruce Wayne, and I'm sure Bruce Wayne will be back in a year. But like, it's kind of the same here. Like, if somebody writes a great prequel idea and they're like, we don't need Tom Cruise, we just want an Emily Blunt movie, and it's her evolution, origin story film, like, then yeah, I'm in. If it's a sequel and it's like, we don't need Blunt, it's all on, Tom Cruise having some, second battle with the alien. I don't know. For me, it's like, do they make a good movie? And other than that, like, I just don't care. And either one of the options, or the third option, I guess, is it's neither of them and it's a whole new person getting the, whatever. All of the options could be done great, and all of them could be done horribly. Like, there's who knows, right? Like, who knows?
Yeah.
For me, that's just the basics.
I will say issues. I disagree with where you say the prequel makes no sense because you 100% know the outcome. How many movies do we watch where we already know the outcome is to some degree? Like,
I mean, Apollo 13 is always my go-to example on this. Like, a movie that you knew they were all going to live, but every second was riveting.
Yeah. I think that's where it gets into, like what you said, is the writing. Can the writing take it to that with you? So I like it.
Yeah, I think if you write it well enough, it won't matter. And I think Miles Morales is a testament to that. Like, all the comic gators were up in arms that their Puerto Rican Spider-Man is the main, and it's just freaking good. Like, who cares? Right? It's just a freaking good story, and the rest doesn't matter.
Yep.
If my wife always says, find me when you wake up in the same way Emily Blunt does, because of the way she doesn't like her acting. That's hilarious. Very funny stuff. Yeah. A lot of James Cameron discussions, because obviously you talk time travel movies, you talk James Cameron. It's just that way it's got to be. Can you make a Tom Cruise movie without Tom Cruise? He wouldn't allow it. There you go. Is not supposed to be in the sequel. Who knows? Love Emily Blunt. Yeah, she's, her character in Sicario, she's supposed to be going against the rules. I think my problem with Sicario is if you feel like you watch Sicario and you come out of that saying that Brolin is a good guy, then I think you missed the point a little bit. He is the real douche in that movie. And Blunt and Benicio are kind of stuck in the middle with their own agendas. But I in general feel like as good a movie as Sicario is, and Sicario and Quiet Place are both amazing movies, there are no good guys. There are it's people all being tainted by a war on drugs that, if you really look at it, it's not a war because nobody's going to ever win. It's something where everybody just comes out dirty in the end. 90% of these movies, the outcome. Say, there you go. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, I could see somebody writing a great version either way. And I can see somebody making an absolute catastrophe of it either way. Right. So it's all about where do they put the money, Yeah. So, but it's a great debate. So we got my sentimental pick for.
And I have one too. So we got 2 more movies left, gang.
Action movie sentimental pick. I went with Days of Future Past. I'm a big X-Men fan, so it's probably partly why this is sentimental. And I understand that it bears very little resemblance to the comic book version. But in the same way that Endgame was a chance to say goodbye and see all these characters I liked over again, I view this as the end of the Singer X-Men. I won't care about Apocalypse. I don't care about Dark Phoenix. I throw all of this stuff away. For me, I really do enjoy this movie. Even though the poster does look like Patrick Stewart is ripping a fiery fart and launching into the air, I really do feel like you can't not see it. Once you see it the first time, you can't not see it ever again. And he's even looking up like it's like launching him. I do like the way they blended the First Class crew and the original crew. I like that they finally were able to kill Halle Berry off and just like walk away. That made me feel really good. I really do enjoy this film. I think it's a lot of fun, and I do think in general the casting for these films was excellent. I know that Hugh Jackman doesn't look like Wolverine in stature, but he captures the character really, really well. Yeah, I just found this movie to be a whole lot of fun. I totally understand people that want to see the X-Men more accurately brought to screen and don't like this version of the X-Men. But if this movie, for me, it belongs up there with First Class and X2 and Logan as the quality X-Men films. And definitely this is a time travel movie.
Yes. I don't have much to say about this one. This one I have not rewatched for a while. It's one I saw in theaters and haven't.
Oh man, now I see it. There it is, right? The fart explosion. You can't not see it.
I like X-Men. I don't get into it as much. So it's kind of one of the I'll watch it, I'm good. Which is weird though, because behind, I mean, I grew up watching the X-Men animated series. Like that was my exposure to X-Men. So, which is a great exposure to it. But I remember seeing this in theaters and enjoying it, but not having much opinion one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think those people that had got a lot of joy out of the previous X-Men films, this was their end game. And for me, this was my end game. This was like bringing them all together, connecting the dots between the histories of these two sort of separate timelines. I thought it came together really well. The Rogue cut is kind of nice because they do bring in more stuff with those characters. I do agree they're imperfect, but I also agree with Pixels. I don't want the yellow and blue tights. It's not going to look good. It's not going to look the way you want it to look. You're going to need to update the look to make it screen enjoyable. The casting was brilliant. Michael Fassbender is phenomenal. And I think his Magneto mixed with McKellen and Patrick Stewart mixed with McAvoy, I think that combo was phenomenal. And I think all told, for me, it just came together really well. It is, again, but much like Endgame bears somewhat small resemblance to the comic book versions, the X-Men bear smaller version, connection to the X-Men in the comics.
Yeah, I still remember like going into watching First Class. That is one I have watched multiple times since, of going like, oh, this is going to be a dud. Like I want Patrick Stewart. I want Ian McKellen as my, my Magneto and Professor X, and like being thoroughly shocked that like First Class was a really good movie and they cast it very well. So
when he pulls that submarine out of the water, I was like, dude, that's freaking amazing.
Like, ooh, yeah, Michael Fassbender is fantastic.
Oh man. Although I've seen people cut together that his like facial expressions with like fart sounds, and it's pretty amazing.
Like the movie poster.
He does look like he's pinching it off a little bit. Yeah, I agree. Fassbender makes those films work, and Magneto is a very charismatic character, and I think Ian McKellen and Fassbender really bridge that gap really nicely.
Yeah.
So let's roll through onto your sentimental take.
Chat asked for it. Chat gets it.
Right? And I know that this is another Perry watch film. And is this time travel? What do you think?
I think it is. I think anytime when you can break the barriers of reality of time, no matter what, like that's an element in there, right? Like if you can talk to someone who's in the past and someone who's in the future and you can make changes, because they do, right? Like like, hey, hide the wallet somewhere where I'm not going to find it for 30 years. Like, oh, this is great. Like, boom. That's time travel. Like, if you can manipulate elements of what's happening in the future because of time travel is there. And
you sound like Bruce Banner. Time travel, right?
Time travel, right? Talk about this cast. Dennis Quaid was in every single episode we've done because he's in every sports movie that's ever done. But Jim Caviezel is, I get it. Some people don't like him. I think he's fantastic in this. I like him.
He's very good in this. No, I totally agree. I love. What was the TV show he was on? Person of Interest.
Person of Interest.
Great on it.
What's his name? Ben, who plays Ben in Lost.
Yeah.
And speaking of Lost, hello, Elizabeth.
Michael Emerson.
Yeah, Michael Emerson. Elizabeth Mitchell's in this one, so you all know her.
Oh, smoking hot in this. Yeah.
And
Andre Brower.
Yeah, if you don't know him, he's the chief in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
He's so good, and he plays a cop in this.
And this is what 10 years before that, so it's one of those like, oh. And I think Noah Emmerich, and he's in so many, like, just he is a token, like if you're like, hey, I'm gonna cast a movie and you need someone who's gonna be a sentimental best friend buddy to someone who's also going to be playing like the wise buddy, like, hey, let me give you a bit of advice. Like, that's Noah Emmerich, right? Like the Truman Show. Like, I think he's cast great in this. And so are there plot holes? Yes. I mean, they set it up with a solar flare, I think is how they can communicate with his dead dad and the
Northern Lights. Yeah.
And you get those aspects of like, the decisions when you make changes, like his mom wasn't dead and they changed something in the past, she died. Like,
yep.
How do we do this kind of thing? And real quick before I let you hop in, let's go. Don't say anything. I just want to see chat. Do you remember someone who's not on this list, who was in this movie? Because I have a slide for y'all. And, I just want to see who, without Googling, chat, let me know who this is.
I will say, I looked at the slide, and I don't know who it is.
Okay.
So I couldn't look at your slide and be like, oh, that's so-and-so. Like I did.
You don't know who it is still?
Still don't know.
Okay. Go to the slide then.
Okay.
This is fun.
You know what? I'm looking at him. Is it George Michael? It's the eyes. Oh my God! Now I see it.
George Michael Bluth. Yep.
George Michael Bluth, man. That's hilarious. Michael Cera, there it is.
Like his second or third movie. I was watching through. I'm like, because I'm one of those people when I watch a movie.
Is he the younger Noah Emmerich?
No, he's Noah Emmerich's son.
Gotcha.
So like when Jim Caviezel's guy comes home and they're like playing, he's playing like
with the neighbor kid, which is the Noah Emmerich's son.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like, I'm one of those guys when I watch a movie, I'm like, who is this? Like, even if I'm like, they look slightly familiar. I IMDb it like a champ.
That's hilarious.
You know his baby daddy. Yep. So.
Yeah, he's always George Michael to me. It doesn't matter what he's in. Like, I know he's done a ton of movies. He's Scott Pilgrim to other people, but he's always George Michael to me.
I mean, before we went on air, we were talking about some of our favorite comedy. That is a top 5 comedy show for me, hands down.
Definitely.
If you guys
until it went to Netflix, but yes.
The first 3 seasons that
I don't acknowledge anything after that.
I actually can't get through. I have not gotten through. I've tried to get through the Netflix, and then when they rebooted it again on Netflix, I just couldn't do it. But so anyway, back to where we're at.
So I will say I'm a big Gregory Hoblit director fan. At least this and Fallen, which we talked about during the Denzel Washington segment in a previous show. I like Gregory Hoblit's a talented guy. He directed episodes of NYPD Blue in its heyday, before moving over to movies. And between just Fallen and Frequency, I was like, okay, this guy he can straight direct. Like, it's just, he knows what he's doing. Yeah. Time was on my side. There it is.
I was gonna say, what was the song? And of course, because I know the chat was blowing it up last time.
He's a super talented filmmaker. He makes things exciting to watch. He builds tension really well, and he makes actors look good, like they are performing, and you're giving a good performance. So in both cases, I think really quality films.
Right. Yeah, and it's a fun. It holds up to me because, again, it's fun. It's that emotion. It's that emotion. I get tied into those connections of, like, when you have those father-son connections, of just, like, the guy didn't get a chance to say what he wants to do to his dad. Like, this is a field of dreams of time travel, if you will, right? Like,
right.
Not in quality gangs before you jump the chat, but like that mindset, right? Of, if you had a chance to say, like, have a conversation with someone, that meant a lot to you, but you might not have been able to show it. What would you say? How would you go about things? And, how would you hold that? And I think it's that I'm a sucker for that. It plays on my heartstrings.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good film, and it's another Perry reaction video that if you want to go hunt down through his.
I haven't watched that one. In prepping, I actually went back and watched Perry reacts to Source Code and Perry reacts to Donnie Darko, and
so that's funny. 3 of our movies he has rewatched. 3 of our 12 movies tonight.
Well, Avengers, he reacted to that.
Oh God, that's 4.
I bet there's more.
Is it possible?
I bet there's more.
Jesus.
Well, I feel bad for him that there's so many great movies, but anyway.
Mind is being blown.
Right.
So that brings us to an end here, folks. This has been our round 1 time travel movies discussion. We have another round next weekend. We're going to look at comedy time travel movies and romance time travel movies, or at least love across time. It doesn't necessarily have to be a man and a woman. Maybe it's a father and son or what have you. But time travel as more than simply just action and tragic futures. So we will definitely be looking into the heart and humor of time travel next week.
Yeah, and I think some of the romantic movies, because of that love interest and stuff, that you possibly still get some of the dark themed elements into it, right? But it'll be like, we're not necessarily talking, like, I think sometimes when we talk about romantic movies, people think romantic comedies. It's all butterflies and sunshines and marshmallow rainbows. But,
well, I will say, like, 2 or 3 of the movies I was considering for that have been mentioned in the chat a bunch tonight, as far as movies that have maybe more of a romantic feel, less of a sci-fi horror action feel at their core. And those are movies that we wanted to at least give their due in some way or another. And I recommended 2 or 3 to Greg that I know that he's maybe watched with the lady over the last few weeks that are solid tearjerkers for sure.
So I'll probably be able to, we'll talk off chat. Give me one that you want that we have to watch together, because we're probably only going to be able to get one done, and then I'll just cry in my basement alone.
Well, I will tell you, it's going to be that one right there. So,
right.
I mean, it's basically one and done, and it's on Netflix right now. Gray Matter Hulk Knows What's Up. I made Perry watch it for a video as well. Right. So if it's just going to be one, it's going to be that one.
All right, we'll watch it, and then I'll watch the other ones and cry by myself in my.
So we went a little long, almost 2 hours. The link to Greg's channel is down below. He's at 352 subscribers, 54, somewhere in there.
52, I think. So
be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. It's totally worth your time. He does some great stuff with his wife. He does some great comic book new pickups. He's on unboxings. You definitely should check it out. I think you're missing out on a lot of stuff. And at some point, we're going to start maybe sharing this show if we want to have some time over there on the Greg channel as well.
Yeah, that's a fun fact. I've never gone live on my channel. So
Looks like Issues and I are agreeing here on that one. So something for you to check out. A movie that puts you in deep thought. So there you go. Looks like people talk about Dr. Zhivago and Keira Knightley. Woo, we're getting deep cut. I don't know that Dr. Zhivago would necessarily be a time travel movie, but I appreciate the romance side that you're going for there. Do you have anything coming up on your channel people should be aware of? What's coming up? Any unboxings or?
So typically I used to do Mondays and Thursdays. Mondays would be unboxing, Thursdays would be a hodgepodge of whatever. I'm creating more content right now so that we've switched to it's now Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay.
Weekly stuff. Typically Monday is going to be unboxings. However, I told you off chat, I've got 3 creator interviews lined up next week. So it's a busy week from that. Sure. So I'll shuffle around a little bit. So it's not creator. So there's some really cool Kickstarters that some are doing. There's some that are established comics that I think you guys will like. So like I said, I do unboxing. So look for myself. I typically try and drop in the evenings, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My wife and I are doing fun game shows. I've named that characters. We've got some fun twists that we do on that. She makes up a lot of names of characters that she knows. It's fun. We get to do that together. We are going to do a book reading here soon because she watches movies, goes to cons with me, but has never read a comic book, and she's up for reading. And a lot of you guys in the chat have dropped out some great suggestions. So I've kind of got it narrowed down to about 4 that I'm thinking about. And
nice.
I think I know where I'm going to let her go. So I'm excited to have that experience and read and share. So yeah. So just if you guys haven't followed me, check it out. Bearded Comic Bro. Look for content Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. And if I'm not there, you can probably find me on John's channel here or Rod's channel on Tuesdays playing some Lamb Refrain. Although I'm out this week because I've got other duties to the channel, but
sure. So for me, this is a busy week. I got a show Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I think I'm off until next Saturday. D&D with White Whale tomorrow. I think we got a Comic Gories coming on Monday, so the Boy Who Had Sevens channel, Comic Gories is back. Tuesday, we're continuing. Justin and I, No Good Comics and I, working through our giant size X-Men, which, I mean, I think it's a really informative show. If you don't know your X-Men and you want to learn a little bit about these issues, you want to hear some of the ridiculous, maybe relive some of the ridiculous moments from these that maybe you don't remember nostalgia-wise. It's been a fun way to roll through this Claremont run. We're on issue 97, so the first Moira McTaggart. No, 96. 96. The first Moira McTaggart issue. So we're going to talk about Moira, the housekeeper who becomes a mutant in the House of X. It could be a lot of fun on Tuesday night. Wednesday is Comic Core and Book Club, and then back here Saturday night next week.
Yeah, and your list reminded me. Thursday night, I'm going to be on Comic Book Posers channel. He's doing the comic book debate. So like Chaos is on it. Two Brothers Comics, JB from Discovery Bay, like a whole bunch of people. Anyways, I'm debating with Adrian APM. We are debating who is a greater animal in comic books. I have Lion Cat. He has Pizza Dog. And we're going to be debating who is a better character between Lion Cat and Pizza Dog from Hawkeye.
I suppose it would depend on the criteria, but you're talking about He-Man's pet.
No.
Lion Cat.
Lion Cat from Saga.
Oh, Lion Cat. I was imagining, isn't Lion-O or something his cat?
Yeah. So
okay, I thought it was He-Man's cat. Okay. Lion Cat from Saga versus the Pizza Dog from Hawkeye.
It's gonna be fun.
That's a tricky debate.
It kind of there's 14 in the chat. It kind of got down to how it got to like I wanted that category to happen because I'm like I don't care who I get because it's gonna be fun talking about either one.
There's no losers, right? There's no losers.
Right. There isn't. So that's why I think it's gonna be fun to debate. So that's a Thursday night.
Nice.
on Comic Book Poser Show. I forget who's going. Also, I think Mo from Dudes Talking Comics and someone else is debating something before us. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for all of you who've hung out with us all night. About 15 to 20 of you hanging with us all night. We truly appreciate it. Leave us a little comment if there's a movie you want us to discuss next time, or if there's a movie we missed. We're thinking about maybe moving into horror for October, but we're still not fully decided. So if you've got a better idea, you can always leave a comment for that as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll catch you again next Saturday.